they will hang pictures of their family, for example. You don't want to have other people in your room. Your room is just for you, especially if you have a partner. Basically, like if you hang a picture of your mom and your dad, basically your mom and your dad is staring at you while you're doing your stuff with your partner.
While you're having sex with your partner.
So it makes it feel easy. You see their face staring at you.
I'm Sara Jane Ho, and this is Mind Your Manners, where no topic is off limits as we uncover the secrets to feeling at ease in every situation.
Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt at peace or instantly off? That feeling might not be in your head. It could be the Feng Shui. Today, I'm joined by architect, author, and viral Feng Shui expert Cliff Tan, the man who made centuries-old Chinese wisdom go viral on TikTok. Together, we're breaking down what Feng Shui really is, how it works, and how you can use it to improve your mood, your sleep, even your relationships, without renovating your whole house. Cliff and I both grew up in households where Feng Shui wasn't just a belief, it was a way of life. And now we're bringing that understanding into the modern world. So what is Feng Shui really about? And how can a few changes to your space change everything? Let's get into it. Cliff, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Sarah. So nice to meet you.
What was your first memory of Feng Shui growing up in Singapore?
So my family is quite into Feng Shui, and my granddad was a Feng Shui master. So it was my home. They had to choose and pick their home, and they asked him for advice. They were between like different facing, and they chose a unit which faced my dad's lucky direction.
Ooh, and what direction was that?
It was facing west, which happened to be my very unlucky direction. So it was great for my dad, but I had the worst time ever. But I survived, and that's one of the things I would tell people often, that don't be too worried. Like Feng Shui, if you don't follow the Feng Shui, it doesn't mean that your life will fall apart. It's just inconvenient. It's like you're someone who likes sunshine and it's a rainy day. You're not going to die. You just take your umbrella and go out. You'll still survive. It's just not as nice as it could have been.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, there are just a couple more obstacles, right, to go through.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
did your family strictly follow Feng Shui rules, or was it more intuitive?
It was funny because they sometimes didn't follow. Like many Asian people, they knew of Feng Shui. They find it very important, but they don't quite know what to follow, what not to follow, what's important, what's not. And so they are kind of guided by half information all the time. So some things they are very, very strict about, and some things which are also no-nos, they just let it pass.
Yeah, that's so funny because I mean, I grew up in Hong Kong with Feng Shui masters running around the house. And in the beginning, like in the early days, I remember, yeah, my parents would, they'd invite the Feng Shui master over, and you're like hanging on the Feng Shui master's every word, right? And like every rule that he says is like, it's like God's will. And so
Totally get it.
yeah, exactly. So I would say we were kind of the same. I mean, the more my parents learned through their feng shui masters, the more they would follow. But a lot of it is also intuitive. And I'm really curious, how did your architecture training in London shape your view of feng shui?
So when you ask me about my earliest recollection of feng shui, that's my parents' house was one of them. But the one that really got to me was when I realized that some of the buildings, the prominent pieces of architecture in Singapore, was shaped by feng shui. There were stories about it, like how a building had bad luck, like bad feng shui, causing its neighbor misfortune, and its neighbor retaliated with building another thing in front of it, and they had this architectural war going on, and that was so fascinating to me. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to know like what's going on behind this. Why was this building built in such a sharp way? And that really ignited almost at the same time, where I learned about how architecture was so interesting in terms of feng shui, and that made me interested in architecture. And that was when I pursued my career in architecture. However, when you're in a discipline, you're very, very strict. You learn about architecture, about how to build and construction. And I did it in London at the Architecture Association, which is not very feng shui. So by then, 20 something years later, the feng shui aspect of it had died down. I suppressed it in a way because I wanted to be professional. I wanted to talk about architecture. I was going to meet my British clients, and I'm not going to tell them, oh, it's not facing your lucky direction. I'll just design houses for them. So later on, the whole feng shui thing kind of died down.
Wow. So then when did it pick up again? Because clearly you started sharing feng shui on TikTok. And so when did you start doing that? And why do you think it resonated so widely?
So that's where the story begins. So I'm an architect, and I had my own practice, and I was just happily doing stuff like that, very typical job. And it was COVID. COVID hit, so everything slowed down, like less projects. We kind of took a break, and during that time, when you traveled, you had to quarantine in hotels for like 2 weeks. At
Yeah.
the time also, TikTok was new. I downloaded it. I was very into TikTok. It was very fun, very engaging. TikTok back then was a bit different from how it is now. Back then, people would create their own content, not like now where people reposted stuff. So I was visiting Singapore in a hotel for 2 weeks. I'm with my TikTok, and then and during then I was like, oh, you know what? I really should contribute. I want to make my own show. I want to make my own content. I love what people are creating out there, and I want to make something. So I was thinking, what should I do? Should I make a channel about architecture? That's a bit boring. What else can I talk about? Feng Shui. Why don't I talk about how to place your bed? It's a knowledge that every Asian knows. Never point your feet towards the door. I thought, okay, that's nice and simple, and everybody knows it anyway, but why not? Let's just talk about it. So I made this video. How to place your bed in feng shui. That went crazy. Like my very first video went viral straight away. And there and then I realized that, oh, people don't know about it. They are interested in it. They don't find it like a joke. Sometimes people think like, oh, it's hocus pocus. Blah, blah, blah. So, but people were taking it seriously. They were interested, genuinely interested, and that was what got me going. I started making other videos. How to place your desk, how to place your couch, and why. And to me, I always felt like it's important to explain why something is the way it is. That's how people can remember. That's how it's memorable. That's how it's meaningful. No point just saying, oh, don't point your feet to the door. You need a bit more. Like, why? So that you'll feel a bit exposed, a bit vulnerable. And so it naturally became a learning channel. I was not funny back then. Okay, so I didn't have this humorous thing going on. I am actually normally funny. So I was trying to be like professional. And it was then that I started my channel talking about it, and not realizing that generally feng shui doesn't usually come with explanation. As we all know, when the feng shui master comes in, they say don't do this, don't do that. Otherwise, bad things will happen. They don't say why, how it leads to it. So, but it works with us Asians, but it doesn't work with non-Asians, because I was like, they don't understand the coffin position, right? We understand the coffin position for a bit, where you never sleep with your feet towards the door, because that's how they put the coffins facing towards the entrance. So I would try to explain it in simple terms, because it means you will die. And so that apparently was funny. And so that was how the humorous thing came in.
Yeah, and I definitely want to go room by room for feng shui, so let's dig into that later on. Cliff, it's funny when I think about when you talked about how you started sharing feng shui on TikTok. For me, I have my Netflix show called Mind Your Manners, and I do makeover reality. It's a makeover reality show, so I do makeovers for mostly Americans. And because I grew up in Hong Kong, it was very natural for me as part of my makeover to take them to do traditional Chinese medicine, to do acupuncture. And when I went into
Ah.
their homes to kind of redo their homes, I'd just very naturally bring in feng shui. I'd say, oh my gosh, there are dead flowers there, throw them out. oh my gosh, there's like mirrors facing the bedroom, a third party is going to interfere in your relationship. And what was funny was I didn't anticipate that my Netflix audience would really lean into that. And so that's when I started sharing my sort of feng shui tips on mostly on Instagram. I haven't used TikTok for that long. And then when you talk about how architecture and and feng shui in Singapore, how there are good and bad feng shui buildings, it's the same in Hong Kong. And you probably know better than me the Bank of China building in Central in Hong Kong.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and how it's a
Triangular.
building, and so they say that each side cuts out like a blade. And so,
yeah.
and then there were the buildings that the edges would cut out into were given bad feng shui. And Li Ka-shing, who at some point was the richest man in Asia for a long time, he built Cheung Kong Center, which is a very high-end office building, and
Yes.
Goldman Sachs is in it. All the top banks are in it, and he actually brought in a corner of the building so that it would just dodge one of the blades.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's
I heard
really
of it. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
It's amazing. There's a bunch in Hong Kong. Really, a lot of them.
so much. So Cliff, you say feng shui should be inclusive and empowering. What do you mean by that?
I think feng shui is something that everyone should be aware of it. Should be allowed to be aware of how it works. Because it's no good just telling people what it what to do, what not to do. They need to understand. Then they can adapt it to their own homes. Because if they know that pointing your feet towards the door makes you feel vulnerable or not a bit exposed, then that's the reason why you don't sleep well. So you can kind of take measures. Maybe you can't move your bed such that it's not pointing to the door. Then you know that, oh, I just need to close my door. That would help. Rather than being afraid, because being afraid is another issue. Is a powerful piece of it would affect the psychology of the space if you are just told that it's bad. Even if it's not bad, you would make things go wrong. So I think it's important for people to know why, and for everyone to understand how it works. To me, that is what makes it accessible. When you understand the workings of it, and you can apply it in your own way if you have to.
Yeah, and what you said about sort of the older generation of Chinese feng shui masters, how they don't explain anything, it's so true. And it's almost like this Asian culture thing where when the teacher speaks, the student does not question, right? And it's like Confucian philosophy where they say the parents are the heavens and then the children are the earth, and you could never ask, you could never question.
Just take it. Just accept the fact.
Yeah, but for
Yes.
Westerners and
Yes.
even for our generation of Asians, we're like, no, we want to know why. And the way you explain it is so powerful. So let's get into demystifying feng shui. How do you define feng shui in simple terms?
So feng shui is basically creating the best possible environment for you to thrive, to work, to be the best possible version of yourself. I usually say having good feng shui is like sending your kid to a good school. It doesn't guarantee they will become like a doctor or a lawyer, but it helps, it just helps. You have the connections, but whether you use it or not, that's up to you. So there's an element of self as well.
And aren't there deep roots in Taoism and traditional Chinese philosophy?
Yeah. So it is about, like, Taoism is about like balance, yin and yang. There is the I Ching. It's all about understanding how things connect to each other, how nature is like always interconnected. And so feng shui is also about like how we react to our environment, how our energy and our elements react to our elements, the elements of the environment. There is two sides of feng shui. One is form and one is compass. So I only do one side, which is the form, which is the architectural side of it. To put it simply, feng shui is about getting the best environment for you, right? So I understand the environment, understand how the energy flows, and how it would affect most people. But there's also an element of you. People are different. No two people are alike. So it takes an understanding of what your preferences are. So the compass side of things is going to judge what kind of person you are, what are your likes, what's your natural elements, what makes you thrive and grow. So that one is a bit more numerology. It will take into account your date of birth, the location of your birth, and understand how you might be based on that. It's all predictions. And for Feng Shui, it's more intuitive. It's understanding the landscape, the space around you, and how that might affect the way you feel. So when they come together, that's when you get like the full Feng Shui. But I talk about the architecture and the spatial thing more, because that is what you would focus on primarily, and then you focus on the other thing.
Yeah, I feel like you walk before you can run, right? Like stage one is the
Yeah.
form. It's just knowing basically like how to practically arrange your furniture, what to do, what not to do. And then so stage two, getting more advanced, is giving the feng shui master your 八字, right? The 8 characters that you
Yeah.
mentioned that are your date of birth, your time of birth, where you kind of like that's like more advanced.
Yes, it is.
What are some common misconceptions people have about feng shui? Like a lot of people dismiss it as superstition.
Yes, the biggest misconception comes from people who don't understand what the purpose of feng shui is. So very often people would say if you do things like this, if you have a mirror, you invite another person. If you sleep in a certain way, you will get rheumatism. Like it creates connections in a way that doesn't seem to make sense. Of course, back then 3,000 years ago, when you had you had a master telling someone who's less literate, you can't expect them to explain. They will just take a shortcut and say, if you sleep like this, you will get ill. Basically, that's what they're trying to say. It's like they don't want to explain, like, oh, if you sleep like this, you can't sleep well. If you can't sleep well, you lose your hours. You are not rested. They just go straight to the point. And over the years, these information gets translated or transferred in a way that people take it at face value. And then it starts to feel and sound superstitious.
Yeah, it's so true. And feng shui masters are really good at like scaring the hell out of you, you know?
They want you to do it. They care. I mean, they care. They'll be like, if I don't care, why would I say this? You know, it's for your own good. So, and that's what scares us.
Yeah, I
And very, yeah.
go ahead.
No, very often, like, if they say something bad is going to happen, we would kind of let it happen, or we will make associations. Like in Asia, at the beginning of every year during the lunar year, they will have predictions based on your horoscope,
Yeah.
and and these predictions are like very very direct. They would say things like, oh, this year you would have problems with your relationships. A third person would come. Beware of your health. Blood will be shed. Like what?
Yeah, it freaks the shit out of you. I mean, I've heard that too, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Yeah, I think it's important for our listeners to know that feng shui is not superstition. I like to say it's science plus soul. Um, and and Cliff, I'm going to ask you, what happens when feng shui is off?
When feng shui is off, you would know. You would feel like I'm not comfortable in this space. For example, if I were to ask, like feng shui is not um something that covers it all. It like there's a bit more, like there's feng shui for when you sleep, feng shui for when you study. So walking into a space, I can't tell that it's a bad space unless I try to sleep. Then I know that it's actually not great for sleeping. A space is a space. It's whether it's suitable for you for your intended purpose. I can go into a nice bright room full of plants and light and say, oh, this looks amazing. But let me try to take a nap. I'm not going to take a nap because it's not restful, it's not calm. But it's amazing for studying. So you will only realize the space is off when you're trying to do the activity that you intended.
Yeah. And how can Feng Shui help with emotional wellness?
It helps with emotional wellness when it helps you achieve the things that you want to achieve. Like when I want to study, I want to feel good, or if I want to sleep well, I want to feel at peace. When the space allows me to do that, I will feel at peace. Is you don't blame the feng shui when you don't feel good. You blame the the things that happen when you don't feel good. You blame your results that when you don't feel good. You blame the fact that you don't have a partner when you don't feel good. But you don't realize that these things are a result. Well, not a result, but like are contributed by your environment.
Yeah. Can you share one of your favorite real transformation stories from a client?
It was actually not me moving furniture around. It was actually me understanding why my client decided to leave his home. So he felt very stifled by the pressures of his family, and so he wanted to leave. And so he found this new place, and he didn't feel good. And he approached me to ask, why do I not feel good? And so I realized that his house was very inward facing. All the desk was facing inside. There was no view out the window. Everything was very close. The window was there, but nothing was around the window. He was seated in a way that had his back from the window. So what he felt was that he left his family and he became a hermit. He went into a cave looking towards himself. So I said, if you want, you need to sit your desk in a way that you can see out into the garden, into nature. You feel the exposure and you can receive the energy that the universe is giving you.
Yeah.
So it's a bit interesting. It's like but now that I explain, you understand why, right?
Yeah.
Of course, he wouldn't understand why. He was like, "Wow, really? Like I never realized." But and indeed, when he did all these things, he felt the fresh air. He felt the plants outside. He felt a clarity in his mind, and that was what he wanted. He didn't want to run away from home. He just wanted to see the world and not be stifled by all. Because he was like, you know what, it makes no difference. I still feel as trapped. But now he's not trapped anymore.
I actually wrote a similar feng shui tip into my etiquette book, Mind Your Manners. And I said that for your study desk, because a lot of people put their desk up against the wall, like you mentioned, and then they're facing the wall. Well, you have like no room for prospects, right? No future. But if you just
Yes,
spin it
yes,
around, you have your back against the wall, and then you're facing the window, like you mentioned, it's like you have all the future and prospects to grow.
exactly. That's amazing. Love that.
So, on that note, let's get into everyday feng shui and let's go room by room, starting with my favorite room, which is the bedroom. What is the most important thing we need to know about the bedroom?
The bedroom is a place for sleep and rest. So the bed needs to be in a good spot. You need to be able to make it conducive for sleeping, whatever that might be. If you need it to be dark, make it dark. If you need to be quiet, make it quiet. If you need soft lighting, put soft lighting. If you There's this thing about in feng shui where they say that you must have space on both sides of the bed to make it easier for a partner to join you. But this day and age, not everybody wants a partner. And we must acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge people's wants. Although feng shui has only one rule, and that is to receive a partner, to make babies, it's not always relevant 3,000 years ago and now. So if you do want to feel private, you want to feel protected, you don't want or need someone to protect you, feel free to push your bed to the corner.
I,
So it is
I
about
I think I
understanding
think
your
for
needs.
most of my listeners who are like 80% women, I think most of them want a partner.
Then you leave the space so that your partner can join you. If you push the bed to the corner, it signifies that I'm happy by myself. I don't need you.
Yeah. And why is bed placement so important in feng shui? I mean, earlier we talked about the corpse, the coffin position, and now we're talking about partners. Like, tell us about this.
So the bed position is how you would feel secure and sound. Because you are half asleep, you are not very conscious. And so when you do that, it would, like, if your bed is, when you're in a very, very vulnerable position, you are more in tune with your environment. If anything happens, you're like, what's that? So you need to remove all and any unnecessary pressure so that you can feel like you are in a sound and safe position, easier to sleep. And that's why it's important for the bed to be in the right place.
And so what is the problem with mirrors facing the bed? Because I mean I always knew growing up it means affairs, but a feng shui master has never exactly explained why it leads to affairs.
It just means that because a mirror is like a portal, a mirror is like a window, but unlike a window, you control its view by the way you position yourself. You see its reflection. You see yourself, you see your partner, but it's not quite yourself, it's not quite your partner. You are seeing someone who is not familiar. And that makes you feel uneasy. It makes you feel a bit aware. And that makes your sleep not so sound.
Yeah. You know, another thing that doesn't make my sleep very sound is when there are sloped ceilings. And that's a big no-no in feng shui, right? Like if there are sloped ceilings, it puts pressure on
Yes,
you.
when there's sloped ceilings, it makes you feel like, yeah, there's pressure, there's a weight on you. You feel trapped. You can't escape from your bed. And that makes you feel uneasy. But like always, it depends on the person. For some people, it doesn't matter too much. For some people, it matters a lot. So it really depends as well. But yes, normally you don't want to sleep under sloped ceilings or a beam above you. Anything that suggests the structure, that shows the structure, will make you feel a bit more uneasy.
Yeah, beams are also bad. I remember I was traveling in India with my dad and my stepmom many years ago. And we were staying in these hotels that were like they used to be old
Yep.
palaces. We were in like north in Rajasthan or something. And and once my dad walked into his hotel room, there was the bed and there was about 100 daggers that were like fanned out on the headboard. and and it was supposed to be grand, right? And my dad took one look, turned around, went back downstairs and was like, change my room.
No, yeah, totally.
What are other feng shui don'ts that people are unknowingly doing in their bedroom?
The very often they would have like a beam above their head. They would have they would have they will hang pictures of their family, for example. You don't want to have other people in your room. Your room is just for you, especially if you have a partner. Just you and your partner. Because pictures of faces tend to like evoke those people, it makes the room feel like it's more energetic. And they basically like if you hang a picture of of your mom and your dad, basically your mom and your dad is staring at you while you're doing your stuff with your partner.
While you're having sex
Yes.
with your partner?
So it makes you feel uneasy. You see their faces staring at you. So very simple analogy. And that's why I use examples like that. So people can remember. Like otherwise, oh, don't hang a picture of other people. Like it will increase energy. That's the idea. Like people are staring at you.
So you got that, listener? So if you're going to be getting intimate with your partner, unless you want your parents or your kids to be watching you while you're doing it, better to not put your parents or kids' photos in your bedroom.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, let's move on to the living room. What is the most important thing we need to know about the living room?
The living room is different from the bedroom because the use of the living room is less fixed. You could be doing many things in your living room. So it's about understanding what are you doing most in your living room. If you are someone that's why I usually ask people, are you a couch person? Are you a table person? If you spend most of your time on your couch, you want your couch to be in a command position, feeling nice, looking at the great views, looking at the TV, without feeling exposed or vulnerable. If you never use your couch,
Wait, explain more about the command position because it's new for our listeners.
Yes. So the command position is when you sit in a way with a ideally with a wall behind you, backing you up. You can see the space around you, especially the entrance, and you don't feel like people are kind of crossing your path and being in your way. So the command position of a couch would be nicely having its back against a wall. It could be floating if you must, but not too big a gap that people are walking past. And you can see the TV and the window and the door all at the same time.
All right. And so that's if you're a couch person. And just now you said if you're a table person, what should
If
you
you're a
do?
table person, then you want your dining table to be in a better position, close to the natural light, nice views. The for a dining table, maybe we are already moving to dining room, but for a dining table, the command position is slightly less distinct because it depends on where you sit. Like a round table has seats on every direction. That we would normally want to put ourselves in the command position of the dining table. In essence, our back is against the wall. We can see the rest of the room. We can see who's coming towards us. The worst seat on the dining table is on the opposite side, where your back is towards the entrance. You can't see who's coming, and you are looking at the wall. So normally, if you want to be polite, as a host, you would give your guests the command position, so that it's like to showcase that you are treating them well. Or if it's your enemy, you put them in the worst spot.
Well, it's teaching etiquette. I mean, I teach a hostess course, which includes how to entertain, how to do table seating. And we very much do say, like, okay, for important guests, give them a view, right? Let them look out onto the room instead of staring into a wall. And just now, when you talked about dining tables, I feel like us Asians, we always prefer round dining tables, at least Chinese
Yes.
people. And in Westerners, they prefer rectangular or square dining tables. And there's a feng shui reason behind it,
For
right?
the feng shui reason is that a round table is harmonious. It has this kind of gravity which brings people together towards the center. We like equality, we like balance, and that's why the circular table works well in feng shui. That said, in Vastu Sastra, which is like equivalent to Indian feng shui, so to speak, they prefer rectangular tables because to them the rectangle symbolizes stability. So with different cultures, they have different preferences for tables, and they have their reasoning behind that. Sometimes I would have clients with Indian descent, and they would talk about Vastu Sastra, and there are sometimes a few contradictions, so-called contradictions, and I would explain to them that they're not contradictions; they're just differing views, and they both have their merits. It's which one you feel more like you feel closer towards.
Yeah, yeah. My feng shui master in Beijing always told me that when it's a social sit down, use a round table. But if it's a business meeting, use like a square or a rectangular table,
Ah, yes, the beauty.
which I thought was
It
quite
is.
interesting. And yeah, and ever since then, that's what I do. As long as I'm at a work meeting, I always prefer, a proper rectangular table.
A rectangular table has hierarchy. Who has the power, who does not,
Ah,
who you should listen to, and how the message is translated. Stable stability. Round table is more casual. Everybody's all friends. Like nobody is more important than others. We're all together in harmony in the middle.
yes. And then Chinese people prefer round furniture, whether it's living room table or dining room table, because there's no corners, right? Which means no conflict.
Yes, another thing is the idea of sha qi, which is the aggressive energy, the pokey corners. So we don't like pokey corners, like knives, scissors, sharp things, corners of furniture, corners of rooms, rounded furniture eases all of that. It's not to say we can't have rectangular furniture. It's just that we have to be more aware of how we place them so that it's not poking us.
Hmm. Now let's move on to the kitchen. What's the most important thing we need to know about feng shui in the kitchen?
The kitchen is more about elements. We have the fire and the water. The main part of the kitchen is about cooking, creating. Fire is the most important element. So you want to not highlight, but like respect the fire in the kitchen. So we will give the stove the most prominent spot. We don't give the sink the most prominent spot. You don't have the fire and the sink too close because they put each other out. Well, the water put the fire out, which is really, really bad in the kitchen. So you want to have
So is that like, so you don't want them side by side, or you don't want them
both.
facing?
You don't want them
So
facing.
okay.
You don't want them too close to each other side by side. It's okay side by side, but you just need a bit of workspace between them. But don't forget, all these things come from a long time ago when the kitchen used to be fire, when the kitchen used to be there to do heavy cooking. Nowadays, modern times, not everybody cooks. Some people like to take away. They like to eat out. So or some people use induction cooker. There's no fire at all. Some people they just use their kitchen to boil water and fry eggs. Where some people they do use kitchen in the traditional way, lots of heavy cooking. So we also have to acknowledge how people use their kitchens, but otherwise, in general, it is a fire element. It is a place that you want to be aware of the fire. Don't put it out. Don't use black, watery colors to make the kitchen feel dull. Don't put your bedroom above the stove because the fire and its smoke will implicate you and rise to where you are sleeping. So in Feng Shui, it's not just about the room itself, but about its relationship with the rest of the house, how the other rooms connect to it, especially for kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah, and that's a deeply Chinese philosophy. Even in traditional Chinese medicine, I feel it's so much about like the whole as opposed to independent parts. And so the fire is important in the kitchen because it's for prosperity,
Yes,
right?
fire is
So you want
you
fire.
you want fire. Well, I mean, you do want fire. You do want your kitchen to be red and orange and vibrant colors. It's a place where you have the noise and the smells and it's very vibrant. You want the action to happen. You don't really want a dead kitchen. You don't really want a dead room. So as the kitchen is where the harvest comes in. And so you want the kitchen to have lots of nice fiery energy. And you try not to put that out.
Well, then should you open the window or not?
Yeah, open the
Like would opening the window and letting wind
yeah,
in
that's fine, that's fine, that's fine.
feed the fire?
That's fine. The like kitchens that will have always been meant to be outdoors anyway. Although we like the kitchen's fire, we don't like to have the kitchen in the center of the home. Because it is a place where there's smoke and there's fire. So we want the kitchen, we want it to be doing what it should be doing, but it shouldn't be the anchor. It shouldn't be where right in the heart of the home where the fire cannot escape. So it is about having it but not having too much of it. It's like a balance.
Mm. Okay, let's move on to the bathroom. What's the most important thing we need to know about feng shui in the bathroom?
So the bathroom has never been a favorite of feng shui. We tend to want to have it away. Not like traditionally, we don't have the bathroom in the house at all, right? It's an outhouse. So the what we don't like about the bathroom is that it's a place of waste where you poo, where you do this kind of stuff. So you don't want to see the toilet as much as possible. When you open the door, you don't want to see the toilet. You want to see the sink or something else but the toilet. So never point the toilet out the door. Never have the bathroom in the middle of the home. Never have the bathroom close to auspicious parts of the home, like your dining room, like your kitchen. So in apartments, sometimes you can't control that. The bathroom has to be there. So you might want to have it a bit hidden. You can use a hidden door or redirect the entrance to face another way, or at least just have the toilet itself, the toilet bowl, in a separate section of the bathroom, like in a separate room.
And what if you can't? Should you just keep the lid closed?
You can keep the lid should be closed usually anyway.
Not all the time, you'd be surprised. I mean, for me, it was only during COVID when, people were getting like when everybody was in lockdown in Hong Kong and China, but people were still getting COVID and people were like, "Oh, it's from flushing the toilet. It's the shared pipes." And then that made everybody, close the toilet lid. So, okay, let's move on to the home office or the study. How can feng shui in the study help us focus better at work?
So the study is important because that's where we build our career. We need to focus. So the office is important that you need your desk to be in the command position. Once again, you have a nice wall behind you to support you and nice open views in front. You can see the door, you can see the views out your window. That's what you want in the study. Um, in the study, that's also where you would it kind of it kind of reflects the parkour map where you have the mountains and the career and the helpful people behind you, and you have the fame and the prosperity in front of you, and you have the family and the children beside you to support you. So it is about creating that harmony when you're working, so you feel supported from behind. You see your motivations alongside you, which is your family, and in front of you is what you strive for, the money and the career and all the nice stuff. So if you can achieve that, have a window close by so you can see out, see the universe, receive its energy, have a door, you are ready for the opportunities to knock on your door and come to you, yet you're protected, you don't feel vulnerable, you don't feel like someone's going to backstab you from behind because you can't see. That's the best kind of workspace.
And what about decluttering your desk?
Clutter is not really a feng shui concept. Like in feng shui, it's about having a nice space. So clutter is bad when it makes you feel overwhelmed, when you lose control of your space. So having organized clutter is actually okay. You know where everything is, but the moment it oversteps that boundary and it makes you feel like you don't know what's going on, that's when it's bad.
Ah,
Mm.
okay. Good to know. In my Netflix show, one of my students had her desk under a staircase. And once I saw it, and it was literally like a staircase that was going like this right above her
That's
head.
bad.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much pressure. And she felt so
Yes.
anxious. And then so we moved her desk out to under an even
Yes.
ceiling, and she just felt so much better.
So true. Like the stairs is a very heavy thing, and if her desk is under the stairs, more likely than not, her back is exposed to the rest of the room as well. So that's another thing that contributes to
It
the
was.
anxiousness.
Because it's
Vulnerability.
vulnerability, right?
So you feel suppressed in front and exposed behind. It's the total opposite of what you should be doing.
And also in the office, if you have your own office room in the office, if your back is to the entrance, that leaves you vulnerable to backstabbing and office gossip,
Yes,
right?
yes, because you have all your co-workers behind you. You don't know what they're thinking, what they're doing. They are looking at your screen. They can see what you're doing. You feel pressure.
They can see if you're watching porn.
Watching porn or not working. Like your boss behind you, that's the worst one. Sometimes, actually, in Asia especially, like bosses would arrange their desk such that they can see everybody's computer at one glance.
Yeah, that's actually what
That's the
I do.
pressure.
So in my office in Shanghai, I arrange it so I see all my I mean we have a small office, a small team, but I see all my
Yeah.
coworkers screens. Is that good or bad? I mean, it's good for me, bad for them obviously, but is it like bad for the whole work environment? Should I have them turn around and face me? But if they turn around and face me, that's chong, right? That's conflict.
Yes, they are like staring at you. So usually you want it to face sideways, so not directly at you. Face sideways, so it's perpendicular. That's the best angle normally. It's fine for you. They would feel the pressure, but sometimes people work well under pressure. They are not going to skive. Yes, like what that kind of arrangement very typical for where there's a lot of hierarchy.
Yeah, so but okay, that's a good tip though. So I'm gonna rearrange
Yeah.
my office so that I'm in the commanding
Yes.
position and I look at my colleagues and they're sideways
Yes,
to
that would
me.
be good.
All right, Cliff. So let's walk through some special scenarios of feng shui on the go. If we're renting an apartment, what should we look for?
Oh, there's just so many things to look for. It's a difficult thing. The I don't want to answer this because I don't want people to be looking for stuff. And
Hmm.
like if I say, oh, I can give a whole list of stuff, and I guarantee no house will check everything. So you'll be just rejecting, rejecting, rejecting. The most important thing to do is when you step into an apartment, you want to feel right. Get the vibes.
Hmm.
Just trust your guts. Look at the view, look at the neighborhood, and feel it in general. If you feel good, we can always make it work. There are always cures for little things, but there's never a cure for the entire vibe. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
That's very good advice. I mean, I do have my feng shui no-nos
Yes,
for my broker when I'm looking at apartments. And I say no north facing. I like south or east facing.
yes,
And west facing, I don't like too because it gets too hot.
yes.
And I know feng shui prefers south and east, right?
Unless your lucky direction is the west. On that note, when people
That's
say
true.
there's lucky direction, unlucky direction, it's not like if you are an east person, you can't buy a west house. It's just that an east house, more likely most of the positions will have things facing the right directions for you. So it's about it's about the micro directions. Where are you facing when you're working? Where are you facing when you're sleeping? So even if your front door is facing your so-called unlucky direction, but everything else is all facing the nice directions for you, it's not that bad. It also works.
Yeah, in which case I just take it.
You just take it. Then sometimes you do want to view your property a few times, like in the morning, in the evening, just to see if it's always nice. Sometimes some apartments are really, really bright in the morning, but once past 12 o'clock, it becomes dark. So it is about how you feel about your space as well.
Yeah. Well, my other big like major no-no is I like the apartment to be fang zheng, like 四四方方, so square and
Yeah?
balanced. And I tell my brokers, like, don't show me anything that's like a half moon circle.
Okay, no, it's true. In Feng Shui, we like full shapes, complete shapes. No missing corners, no additional corners. It feels harmonious. That's always nice to have.
Yeah. Because if it's like a half circle or a missed corner, it just feels off, like, right? I mean, how do you even put your furniture?
You mean the room? Yeah. So we like
Yeah,
square
the room.
shapes. We like square plans as well. So no rooms sticking out, no funny corners. But yeah, like I mean, for people who do have funny corners, don't be worried. There's always ways to fix it. There's always a thing to. There's always some function for this weird odd corner that you have. In fact, today I'm just going to post a video about just that.
Ooh, okay, but so give us a sneak peek. How do you fix an odd corner?
You find something that aligns with its function. Like an odd corner is useless, right? So you find something that would give a purpose to the odd corner. Like in this corner, I decided to put like a nice wine bar. So it becomes an attractive thing. Normally an alcohol bar would stick out into the room awkwardly. Now we have this little indent. We can set it in nicely. It doesn't get into the room. It gives you a function. It becomes an attractor in itself. Yeah. So next time you will want
I like
houses with a
that.
funny look.
Yes, perfect. And what about hotel rooms? Do you ever rearrange hotel rooms when you travel?
No, hotel rooms are well, I've done it before, but but hotel rooms are not so important because you don't spend so much time. This brings me to an interesting point in Feng Shui. I always say Feng Shui is a bit like a diet. You know, it only affects you when you keep having it. If I give you a cheeseburger now, you're not gonna get fat tomorrow. You just need to eat it every single day. Same thing with a room. If I put you in a bad sleeping position, your life is not going to fall apart tomorrow. You might not sleep well tonight, but that's fine. You'll recover when you get home. So, and sometimes people want hotel rooms for the novelty. They want a room full of mirrors.
Tell me about it. I had that experience. It was terrible at the Baccarat Hotel in New York City. This was back in 2019 when it was still like somewhat new.
Yes?
And I walked in and the whole of one wall was a mirror and it was facing the bed. I was so horrified. So what happened was actually the bed was kind of four poster. There was a four poster frame.
Yep.
So I asked them for extra bed sheets and then I just hung the bed sheets over the frame so at least when I was
Yes?
sleeping it wouldn't be a mirror on
So
me.
much energy, so much energy. So sometimes the mirrors are a novel thing. It makes you see yourself and your partner. I have had clients who ask for more mirrors. So for that very purpose, because they want to see themselves. So like you kind of understand where they're coming from, and you help them achieve that in the least intrusive way. I say, fine, put a mirror. Just keep it away from the face side, like towards the lower half of the body. You have a mirror there, that's fine. But like returning back to the
Yeah.
hotel thing, it's okay. Some people like that feeling. They would have a bathtub in the middle of the room, lots of water energy. But it is a novelty. It is a holiday after all. It is an experience. If it's to experience what you should not do, so be it. It's a good lesson learned. So I'm okay with hotels. But when I have worked with hotels before, for a hotel, what's important for the hotel owners is to have a very grand entrance to make you feel like you have arrived someplace better than your own home, so that you feel like, this is something that I want to experience. It's not worse than my home, for example. So hotel lobby is very important. Makes you feel welcome, makes you feel in awe, brings in the good energy, giant chandelier, all those stuff. Then the rooms, yes, it needs to be comfortable, but it's less important. It's more about the novelty. It depends on the hotel as well, actually.
Yeah, a friend of mine, his dad owns and runs Banyan Tree,
Ah,
and he said in a podcast that there are definitely rooms that they know which are haunted because hotels are so yin, right? They have so much yin energy
yes.
because
Half the time
a
the room
lot of
is,
them are
is
empty a
empty,
lot of the time.
correct. And
Yeah,
they have witnessed a
and
lot.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is scary. And so for me, I always ask for a room that's not at the end of the corridor, right? Because they say
Yes.
those rooms are more why are those rooms more spooky?
Because the energy doesn't reach them. they're all the way at the end. Like energy passes the other room, so it feels more occupied, more used. Whereas those rooms are like the last ones occupied. It's quite it stays empty. It stays a bit dead. So there's this concept in Feng Shui which is like the dead energy. The Ci. So you don't, even in your own houses, if you have a home with many rooms, you don't want to leave rooms empty. You want every room to have a little function to them.
Yeah. And that's why it's not good feng shui for you to be too few people in too big of a house, right?
I have had that before, and usually I would try to guide people to say that, okay, you need to make this your yoga room, make this your hobby room, make this your TV room. Find the functions for every single room so that you at least go through it every so often.
Or throw like a really big house party and open all the rooms.
Yes, let it breathe. Let the air flow.
So, Cliff, how are you spending most of your time now? Is it on consulting?
Oh yeah, so ever since my channel took off, I've just been doing consultations for people. This was never my job. I never thought I'll be doing this. It was more of a demand. I started my channel. People were asking me questions. How do I do my room? How do I do my house? And that's when I started my channel where people can book me and we can talk about it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing every day now.
Wow. And what countries are your clients from? Tell us about them.
They're from everywhere, all over the world. I have clients from every country you can imagine. And it's so interesting because by now, after seeing thousands of clients, I am able to tell the difference between people's homes just by looking at the pictures of their their floor plan, or looking at the pictures of their home. You can guess where they're from because there's all these cultural differences between homes that's quite interesting. For example, like in the UK, people would have washing machines in their kitchens, which is crazy for everybody else in the world. Why are you doing that? But it's totally normal in England. And in continental Europe, they will often have their washing machines in the bathroom. So unlike in America, you have your own laundry rooms, right? So Americans think that their houses are perfect, but all of you have this weird quirk where you have two doors, a garage door and the front door, and nobody uses the front door. The front door leads to nowhere. And all of you use your back door to get in and out of the house. And Italians, they must have a bidet. Every bathroom will have a bidet. And like in Southeast Asia, like they will have wet and dry kitchens. Kitchens where you so they will have the kitchen where you do the real cooking, called the wet kitchen, and we have the presentation kitchen to look like you are white because they fancy themselves living like a white person, so to speak, where they will have an oven and a fancy kitchen where they don't do the real cooking. It just looks nice.
So it's a kitchen for looking and a kitchen for cooking. And
Exactly. And
which one's
also,
better feng
yeah.
shui? I mean, I heard from my feng shui masters that open kitchen is not very good feng shui because the qi dissipates.
And that's exactly why we have wet and dry kitchens in Southeast Asia. So they fancy the idea of a kitchen that they see in the movies, but they don't want the energy of the kitchen to infect the house. So they would have a wet kitchen where the real cooking is done, and the dry kitchen where they put the fruits and make their espresso coffees, and that's it.
So it doesn't affect the feng shui. Wow.
Yeah. Now you know.
That is so fun. That is so fun. Okay, well, Cliff, we went through a lot today. There are so many tips that our listeners can use. What would be your number one piece of advice for beginners?
For beginners.
Yeah, because a lot of our listeners, feng shui this is new for them. What's your number one piece of advice for them?
My number one piece of advice is find out what is the thing that you spend your most time doing and make sure you feel good in that spot. So if you're always at your desk, make sure your desk is in the command position. If you're always on the couch, make sure your couch is in the command position. That impacts you the most because that's where you spend the most time. Like the diet, the more you eat, the more it affects you. So for most people, even though they don't like their work, they work from home, they hate their boss, doesn't mean you should put your desk in a little corner shoved away. You don't like to sit, doesn't mean you need to suffer. So ensure that where you spend most of your time feels good to you, and just take a look at your surroundings and be more aware, and just start by letting your heart guide you and see how you want to fix it.
Yeah, because your heart never lies. That's so Beautiful.
Yeah.
And, for me, I see Feng Shui as both etiquette and energy because it's helping you live your best self.
Yeah.
Um, it's helping you live your best life and be your
So
best self.
true. So true.
And right? And I feel the way you arrange your space reflects how you care for yourself.
Love that. No, I think it's so true, and I totally agree. So now you know.
Well, Cliff, thanks for coming on the pod. Thank you for your time. We'll have to have you back on to do deep dives into each of these segments because there's so much to
So
cover in
much to
feng
talk
shui,
about.
and I'm so passionate about it. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Mind Your Manners. Please like, subscribe, and check us out on YouTube. I'm your host, Sara Jane Ho, and remember, no matter what life throws at you, with me in your ear, you got this.